Our speaker this morning is someone who I've had the opportunity to meet just this morning for the first time. He's an alum of Lansing Christian. He graduated in 1986. He is actually Mrs. Haggie's brother, which means he is Luke's uncle. Just seeing if you got it. Yeah. So he's a LCSer. He is a family member to some of the people here. I tried to kind of think about how to introduce him by looking through his story and listening to things in the middle school chapel that he shared. And the best thing I came up with is that he is like a genuine real-life explorer, which I didn't know existed still. And so that's pretty cool. So he's got quite the story. In particular, one of the things that he did for about 5 years is he went on an expedition as an explorer to try to find Noah's Ark. And he's part of a documentary that was created for that. And so we're going to see a little bit of an introduction from that documentary, and then we will welcome Kevin Devries right after we see this film.
All right, whose idea was it to have the cowbells? Is that Luke? Where are you, Luke? There he is. All right, let's give it up for Luke. Luke's a great guy. In our family, he's called Cool Hand Luke, or Lucky Luke. Lots of good things happen to Luke. So thank you, Luke, for being here. I'm not going to embarrass you today. There's my sister, of course. My mom just came in. One of the nicest people on planet Earth. The older I get, the more I'm grateful that she's still here with us, and just a wonderful woman that I was just telling Miss Hoffman, I don't think I've ever met anyone that's ever said anything bad about Mom. How many of you have a mom like that? No one ever says anything bad about your mom. My mom is just the greatest. So you can't think that your mom's the greatest. I already have that title. I have it trademarked. I have it patented. My mom's the greatest mom. So thank you for coming. Wonderful to be here. Yes, I graduated LCS, class of 86, back when they were on Pennsylvania Avenue. And I had this thing that was undocumented at the time. It was called ADD. You could probably add HD to that. Hyperactive, all this stuff, and all these, I had just problems. And so my apologies to Miss Somerville, who I want to call the ageless one. I think she's found the ring of power because she is not aging at all. I just remember her from 30 years ago. I'm like, she's still here, and she still looks great. So let's give it up for Miss Somerville. But my apologies to you. Maybe you can extend all my apologies to all the teachers that I had. But I was a good guy. I really had a good heart. I just got really distracted all the time. And I don't know, after about 10 minutes in class, I just had to do stuff. So I feel bad about it. But you know what? There was hope, because a lot of explorers have ADD. I looked on the mountain when I was climbing. I'm like, these guys are all like me. They're entrepreneurs. They're eclectic type guys. They're Indiana Jones types. So people ask me, what did you do on the mountain? Well, basically my job was very simple. I had to keep really, really smart guys alive. How many of you know someone that is so smart that they can't even tie their own shoe? I mean, they're just like, wow, this guy can so all these guys on the mountain, just picture this. They're Indiana Jones types. I was just with some of them in Israel in January, and we were digging in caves, actually a cave, which now has been designated as C12 or Cave 12. And guess what we were looking for? We were looking for Dead Sea Scrolls, which we haven't really found any more of since about the mid-50s. And so we're digging in this cave, and I'm with these guys. I'm like, how does this story happen? I'm with them on Mount Ararat. We're looking for Noah's Ark, and now I'm with them in Israel back in January, and we're looking for stuff. And we just found out in the last couple of weeks, it was on BBC and Fox News and CNN and all the major news channels, that the cave that we were actually digging in, we've now been able to prove actually at one time held Dead Sea Scrolls, which is kind of a big deal in that world, in that community, because they haven't had a new cave. There's only been 11 of them since like the mid-50s. They found them between 48 and the mid-50s. We now have another cave where we know there was a Dead Sea Scroll. Now, how do we know that? Well, the guy that we were digging with, the Arab that was one of our partners along with the Israelis, had this sheepish look on his face, because as we're digging into the cave, we're finding his great-uncle's excavation tools that he hid in there. So obviously somebody had been in this cave before we were, and then as we got into it further, we found a lot of pottery pieces and vases that actually held some Dead Sea Scrolls in it, and then all the circumstantial evidence was right there when you're finding all the goat skins and all the papyrus, particles that are left there and the broken vases. It's very obvious there was something really, really important in this cave at one time that was taken. Now, we do have some parchments that we're doing some spectral imaging on, and if we can see that there's words in there that actually match biblical text, then maybe, just maybe, we actually found another Dead Sea Scroll, which is really cool, because when you think about it, those Dead Sea Scrolls were in those clay pots for thousands of years, right? And when they took them apart and they did all the spectral imaging and this infrared, they were able to read the Old Testament. Every book that you read in the Old Testament was found in these scrolls, with the exception of Esther, which is another issue all of itself. But it's fascinating to know that what you read every day, the Bible that you crack open during your Bible class, during your chapels, is the same book that was written thousands and thousands of years ago. Now, let me say this at the onset, because a lot of people are like, okay, this guy is pretty nuts, because maybe you guys don't think this. Maybe you do. My kids know that I'm a little different. So when they were younger, it's not so bad now because my story is in the school there that they go to. But the teachers would always pull me aside during the sports stuff or whenever I'd come up to the school events. I do this watchdog thing, so I go into the school and I hang out with my kids and I pretend like I'm a security guy and all that stuff. But the teachers will pull me aside and they'll be like, man, your kids are really bright and they're mentoring other students and they're popular. There's really nothing wrong. They're just super smart. I mean, my son told me last fall, I was like, Jack, how's school going? He's like, well, I haven't got anything wrong yet. I was like, what? That's not me. Where did you get that from? Like, he says, I haven't got anything wrong yet. So I pull aside his teacher. He's like, yeah, he hasn't got like any questions wrong yet. I was like, so this kid's brain, it's like, holy cow. I mean, this Indiana Jones stuff, and we just feel like these stories should not be circulating in our school. And then, of course, I have to tell them, okay, their dad is as unique as a fingerprint. You're as unique as a snowflake, if you will, or not a flake, but a snowflake. And there's something about what God has put in your heart that if you don't do that thing, and pots of golds and happy leprechauns jumping around, I would do something that's kind of got this, fairy tale ending where everything, there's a villain and there's bad things that happen, but somehow in the end it all ends up getting tied up nice. And it still does with this gospel thing, but there's parts of my story that I don't really like, that actually offend me, which is kind of crazy because it's my story, it's my movie. So you watch this video, right? The first half of the video is basically the movie trailer to get you to come to a movie. And this movie actually is Finding Noah. I was there on the mountain for 5 summers, and the last summer that I was there, 2013, a Hollywood film crew came in. They said, hey, you guys got a cool story here. Let's film this. And we thought, what are they going to film? What if we don't find something? I mean, how are they going to make a movie out of this? And anyway, they made a brilliant movie out of it. But here's the deal, guys. There are a lot of Christians that I bump into that think that I'm crazy for a number of different reasons, but they also believe I'm crazy because they don't believe that the story of the flood actually happened. And let me tell you why I think it really happened. Not because I was there when it happened or because I have some secret revelation. I believe the flood actually happened because Jesus thought it actually happened. There's 4 Gospels, right? And 2 of those Gospels, when Jesus was talking about Noah and the ark and the flood, even though he was a master of metaphor and he told stories like you wouldn't believe, to the extent that people were following him and forgetting to eat for days on end, and they would just wander through the Galilean countryside and just follow this guy because, wow, miracles are happening and these demons are coming out of people and miracles, people are being healed, and how does this all happen? It's almost like heaven is just crashing into earth, and wherever this guy goes, stuff happens, miracles, right? And so when Jesus was... So I worked with a bunch of Muslims, okay? And we did stuff on the mountain together, and I didn't really know a lot about them. I knew some parts of them. On this mountain, there are 2 groups of people, kind of like the Hatfield and McCoy thing in West Virginia, and they do not like each other. In fact, they kill each other. So every year that we're on the mountain, there is a Turkish army battalion of tanks that are at the base of the mountain, and they are shooting into the mountain as target practice. So Luke's a real shooter, hunter kind of guy. Just imagine these big, giant tanks, and they're using this mountain as a backdrop, and they're blowing this thing up, and you can see the tracers at night, just boom, 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 and they're just blasting the mountainside. And then just imagine that these Turkish soldiers are also trying to kill guys that are hiding inside this mountain where you're looking for the ark. So these ravines and this Ahura Gorge, which is about a third of the mountain, came off in 1820 with a massive earthquake. 6,300-foot drop, a couple hundred feet from our campsite. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon. If you've been to the Grand Canyon, you know what that's like. Or if you've been on a skyscraper and you have a glass floor, it's like, it's like you get just nauseated. You're just vertigo. It's like, oh, your stomach just turns over, and it felt that way looking. Just imagine that these guys are all hiding in these caves and in these crevasses and ravines, and every time the Turkish guys go up into the mountain, there are people that don't come back down. We had one gentleman that disappeared in 2010. He wasn't part of our team. He came a year after, or actually a month after us. We left in September. He came in October. He was trying to research a site of it was actually a hoax. Some people had planted some wood and made a big story about nothing. It was not real. They took all this wood from a a castle in Iran and from a shipwreck in the Black Sea, and they built this movie set about Noah's Ark, and then they duped all the locals into doing all this work for them at the last minute. They says, no, we didn't build the Ark set, we found the Ark. And so they brought all these cameras in. It was just a big stinking lie, right? So he goes, looks for it, and then he disappears. Nobody knows where he went. It's a dangerous place on that mountain. His mom is still calling. At least the last time I read the last article, his mom, can you just imagine the torment of this mother? She's calling his cell phone every day, hoping he picks up. Maybe he's alive. Maybe he's captured somewhere. So this is a dangerous place. I found myself in 2009 hiding in a ditch because the guy got on the phone with me, our Kurdish partner, who now is passed away. Under very dubious circumstances. Two of our Kurdish partners that were in this film are no longer alive. We think that there was some foul play there, but they made it look as if it was a heart attack, and I think it was something else. The Turkish generals that gave us the permits, they're all in prison because of a failed coup, and they'll probably be there for the rest of their life if they're not executed first. So there's a lot of people in this story that I was working with, that I was close with, that are no longer on planet Earth, or they're in a prison languishing somewhere, hoping to see some daylight. So this is a dangerous place. I remember in 2009, the guy told me, he says, you need to get in a ditch right now. We were in a van, and here's the deal. You know, you're with this van full of Iranians, right? And you're one of 2 of 3 Westerners, and the Iranians are allowed to go through, but you're not allowed to go through. And so they take you and a couple other people, and they put you in a ditch, and they're like, okay, we'll find you tomorrow. I'm like, how are you going to find me? We'll just find you. I'm like, well, you're just thinking, how in the world did I end up in this story? I'm looking for Noah's Ark, and here I am sitting in a ditch because I don't want to get shot at, and I'm thinking, this is crazy. It's like Frodo Baggins and Samwise Gamgee going into Mordor, and they're both talking, and Gollum is kind of doing his slurking, lurking thing, and he's in the background, and they're all both saying, how did we end up in this tale? How did we fall into this story? How did it get to be that this dude that graduated from Lansing Christian High School in 1986, who's got ADD, how did he end up in this story that's so crazy that he can't even tell it without laughing about it, and his teachers of his kids think that they're liars? How do you end up in this story? You're going to get out of this school system 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and you're going to find yourself in the middle of your story, and you're going to wonder, how in the world did I get here? I graduated class of 86. Probably half of us have gone through divorces, of which is also part of my story. Some of us have gone through bankruptcy and have also been millionaires, of which both have been part of my story. I've been the dude that lived on a McMansion on a golf course. I've been the guy that's lived in his vehicle. I've done all that stuff. I can relate to millionaires. I can relate to homeless people because I've been that whole story. And part of my story got involved with this Ark thing because I began to realize that with each passing year, there was another story that was going on. It was deeper, and I couldn't get my fingers on it. I was like, I remember writing in my journal in 2010, I was on the mountain, I wrote these words, I feel more like an animal than a human being. I feel like my past is catching up with me. I feel like all this pain that I'm trying to numb and medicate like an ark under the ice is catching up with me, and it's scaring me to death because I am running from my past. And then I look at the mountain guys that are with me, and I'm like, what is going on here? We all have one thing in common. We're like kind of messed up. And it's beyond ADD. All these guys are war vets. Every year we had a military detachment with a security detail because we're in a demilitarized zone. So there's a lot of stuff that can happen and people disappear. So we have Navy SEALs with us one year, or we might have an Army Ranger or an airborne guy, or just guys that are really good at keeping people safe, and they know multiple ways of helping people make an exit off this planet. They're guys that are trained in this type of combatant occurrences. And they're the ones that are saying to me, dude, we know that you've never been in combat, but you've got what we got. And I'm thinking, what, Ark fever? I mean, what are you talking about? I'm just completely, whew. He says, no, it's post-traumatic stress disorder, dude, ding dong. And I'm like thinking, what are you talking about? And they're like, how can you tell? What makes you say something to that? Like, you've got that same look in your eyes that we have. It's a 2,000-yard stare, and it's vacant, and there's nothing really there. It's like you're here, but you're not here. The lights are turned off. And you're like someone that's just gone through something, and you are not here. Right? What are you talking about? When we hear you talk, all you keep talking about is your past, the things that you did wrong, or the things that someone did wrong to you, and you keep beating yourself up over this stuff. Your divorces, your bankruptcy, your yada yada, your exit out of ministry and then back into ministry, and all this stuff. And it's all this shame that you keep talking about, and it's just like there's shrapnel in your mind. It's in your heart. It's almost like Frodo Baggins, you're on top of Weathertop, and the Witch King Morgul just sticks you with this evil blade, and then he pulls it out, but there's this shard that remains. And with each passing letter, with each passing sentence, with each passing paragraph, Frodo becomes what? More and more like a wraith, like a shadow. And here's what will happen to you in life. If life wounds you, and it will, if it hasn't already, and there's wounds inside here, I can see it in some of your eyes. Some of you are like, dude, you're tracking with me because I've got pain in my life. I know what it's like to go through divorce because my parents divorced or are thinking about going through a divorce. I know what it's like to see money go away because my parents have had difficulties with that stuff. I know what it's like to have somebody touch me or do something to me that violated me in such a way that I had this secret inside that is making me sick. And that's where the glory of the gospel comes in, is God's glory is the secret, right? And so is the enemy's. They both want secrets because it breeds something. It brings about this other set of stories. And so God's glory in Proverbs chapter 25, verse 2, is the secret, but the glory of man or the glory of mankind is the search. And so these things happen to you in life. And all of heaven and hell is fighting for one thing. They don't care about your stuff. They don't care about your reputation. They don't care about your academic credentials. They care about the one thing that goes on and on and on. It's the heart. It's the everlasting God particle inside of you that lives forever, and they're fighting for this. And if they can damage that, speaking of hell, then they've got you, because you'll start believing lies about yourself, and you'll start living out these lies, and you'll find yourself doing something that you despise. You'll find yourself doing things that you wouldn't want to do, and you find yourself hurting other people. It's almost like you're a wounded animal. If you've ever seen a wounded animal and you try to approach it, let's just say a dog has got a porcupine quill on him or something, and you're trying to get that out, and you're trying to get that dog in a corner, and every time you touch that quill, just all teeth, right? And claws. And they're just, the hair is bristling on the back of their neck, and you want to help this animal, but you can't because it's in pain. Have you ever seen somebody drown? I have. It's a terrible thing to watch. But lifeguards are trained how to approach a drowning swimmer. You have to somehow get around them and do some various maneuvers, and I don't have time to get into it, but basically you need to prevent yourself from drowning, because when somebody's drowning, they usually take you down with them. They're freaking out. They're thinking, this is the end. How am I going to survive? And so anybody that comes to them, even though they're gasping for air and their lungs are filling up with fluid, and you're trying to help them, they're in panic. They're in trauma. They're seeing their life pass in front of them. And anybody that approaches them, they get dragged down into the depths. So I'm gagging on trauma, right? I've got stuff that's happened to me. I don't even have time to get into all of it, but I have stuff that's happened to me in my life that has filled me with shame, has filled me with hurt, has filled me with lies, things like you're not lovable, you'll never love again, you're just somehow this misfit, right? You feel like you're just this toy on the island of misfit toys. You're the squirt gun that shoots out ketchup. You're the train with blocks for wheels. They're not round. You're Charlie in the box. You're not Jack in the box. And you're all waiting for somebody just to come, King Moonracer to come and land on this island, and somehow some child will pick you. Somebody will love you again. Somebody will tell you that you're worth it. Somebody will believe in you. Somebody will tell you that it's okay, that life's going to be okay. And you're on this island, and you're just waiting for somebody to pick you. And that's a lot of what high school's like. The things that I talk about or think about when I was at LCS, it's like some of them, it's like a fog almost. It's like the things that I thought were so important in my high school years, about being popular, about being accepted. Yeah, it was important to me because that was my world. But in the larger picture, there's only one person you've got to worry about what they think about you, and that's Jesus Christ. And that person is incredibly in love with you, to the extent where there's a part of God in this idea of grace where he is only attracted to the imperfections that exist in your life. What is grace? You could look at it as a lover that is only attracted to your imperfections. So your goal is to transform the world, right? You have the image of Christ inside of you. You are connecting the dots. You're like, wow, you don't know it now, but you will when you get out of this. You're like, man, somebody told me what the big story was. Someone like Miss Somerville invested in my life, or Mrs. Hoffman, and they told me things, or my Bible teachers like Tim or Jason. All these people are investing in my life, and they're giving me the big story. They're telling me where it started in time before time, and where evil made its entrance, and where the shadow came, and Eden, and all the way through to the crucifixion and to the rebirth and the reincarnation, all that stuff, not the reincarnation, but the incarnation of Christ and into the world, and all these different things are happening, and then you know how it ends in the book of Revelation, and you figure out, I've got a small part in this story to play. I may not be looking for the ark, but I'm on a search. I'm looking for something. What is that something? I believe it's grace. Justice is where the policeman pulls you over and says, okay, you got a ticket, I'm going to give it to you, and this is what you deserve, because that's how the system works. Mercy is where the policeman says, you know what, I should give you this ticket, you should be penalized, you should be charged something here, but I'm going to just forget it and rip it up. Grace is where the policeman not only doesn't give you the ticket when he should, but he takes the ticket and he pays the ticket and he puts that ticket on his record. Now, here's the key, guys. It took me a long time to figure this out. I used to spend my years in youth ministry in the 90s telling everybody about success stories and how, great of an example I was and da-da-da-da and all that stuff. And here's what I realized, is that there's something about us as students of LCS, something about us as humans. We have something that God doesn't have. He has everything. But there's one thing that he doesn't have that he really needs for this grace thing to shine through. And what is that one thing? Human weakness. Why did Jesus have to be born in a barn when he could have been born in a palace? Why did Jesus have to go through 30 years of obscurity? Man, if I was God and I was writing that tale, I would have Jesus born in a palace. I would have him be this high prince. I would have him take over the Roman regime. I would have him bring in the kingdom of God. I would have him annihilate all the enemies of God. That's how I would write this script. And then I would have him start doing miracles the minute he came out of his mom. And I would have him do all this crazy. I wouldn't have him do this carpenter thing. Why would he have a normal job? He's got a big job to do. Why would you waste 30 years of this guy's life? Why would you compact it into 3 years and make something happen in that particular moment? Why would you do that? It's because, and why would you have this God be crucified? Why would you do that? It's because that's where grace comes through. That's where the deep magic is that C.S. Lewis talked about. It's a paradox. The enemy doesn't understand it. So if you're weak this morning, can I tell you something? That's where God is strong. I have a weak story. I have things that people are like, how do you do this? You go around the nation, you tell people about your stuff. I'm like, yeah, because it seems like that's when God shows up the best. That's when he becomes strong, is when I'm weak. Put your God goggles on for a moment. It's really warm for a March day, right? Let's just imagine we're in Narnia. C.S. Lewis has gone through World War I. He's watched people die around him. He's got shrapnel inside of him. He goes home. He doesn't have parents. He has a dad that he's estranged from. He's been in a reform school. He has no relationship with his father. He loses his mom when she's really young. So now all of his characters are orphans. He's got all this trauma just like Tolkien had. And so all these characters are orphans and they're walking through these mythic landscapes. Could it be that maybe what C.S. Lewis is trying to tell us is that your pain, that your trauma is like the wicked white witch? And she comes into your life and she touches a part of your story, and your story is frozen in ice and you feel like a leper and you can't medicate yourself. And some schools that I speak in, cutting is kind of a big deal. People are cutting themselves because they want to be reminded that they're humans, that they bleed. Because they feel like sometimes when they cut themselves, they're wondering if electrical circuitry is going to come out. Because they feel, I've had so many students tell me, I don't feel anything anymore. I'm numb. I'm sick of life. I don't like what's happening in my story, and I'm just checking out. Help me to feel again. Because one thing I've learned the hard way, if you can't feel, you can't heal. You have to feel in order to heal. If you keep numbing and medicating your stuff, your baggage, your pain, your shame, it's just going to lie there and all these wounds will come in. So let's imagine, okay, this white witch comes into the picture and she's touching and she's freezing things. What brings spring? Aslan. Aslan's on the move. I've traveled the country in the last 2 months, and there's this weather pattern that's been coming in. The Native Americans in the Northwest call it the Chinook winds, and they call it even more something specific than that. They call it the ice eater. Jesus Christ is the ice eater. He comes into your story, whether it's in Narnia through Aslan or whatever, and he comes in and he breathes life, and he breathes his breath upon you, and he brings you back to that place. So why was I on Ararat? What was I looking for? What was the face of God? Every year that I was there, every foot that I was drilling, every foot that I was climbing, looking for this ark underneath the ice, God made it very clear to me that you are climbing a mountain of pain. The mountain I was on was called Agrida. When you translate that, it means the mountain of pain. I wasn't meant to find the ark. I was meant to find this. Because when you get this back, this stuff can happen. You become a blowtorch. You become fearless. You become indestructible because nobody can shame you because your shame is healed. I'm not afraid to touch lepers anymore, whether they're physical or real, because I've been healed of my own shame. I could care less about my story. I'm actually not even animated by it anymore. But if it can help people, so be it. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for this morning. Thank you for these students. They're all on a search. They're all on a quest. Some of us look for the ark. Some of us look for a great job, a great marriage, a great life. There's secrets that are in this room here, some good, some bad. Lord, there's a search. Let them know in their search, let them know in their journey that there is a God that is attracted to their imperfections. There is a God that will never leave them, that will never forsake them, that is graceful, that always transcends to the lowest level of their existence and meets them exactly where they are. And everywhere they go, He's already there. Let them know this, Lord, of all the things that I've said. Cement this in their hearts today. Years from now, decades from now, right here in this moment, even into their past, let them know it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. God's got a plan. He's going to use their mistakes. He's going to use their success. He knows all the stuff that's going to happen before it's going to happen. Just let them know, God, give them peace inside their heart. I pray for the pain that exists in this room this morning. Jesus Christ, come as Aslan. Come in your dangerous and good form. We know that you're noble and you're savage all at the same time. You're tender, you're tough, you're fair, you're fierce. Just come like the Aslan lion and come and roar into our lives and speak to us and wake us up and break the pain and break the shame and bring spring once again. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.